Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Audio Product Development Alliance. I'm Roger Shively from Shively Acoustics International, and this is the APDA, your gateway to audio product development. The only organization that's focused exclusively on audio product development and education, providing current, relevant content that can be experienced in person, live, online, and on demand with a combined and valuable cross-industry and knowledge sharing. The APDA serves as a networking hub for the audio industry, offering access to experts and colleagues for professional development. The APDA is where you can come to learn how to build relationships and build better products. And we talk about design, measurement, simulation, supply chain today. Automotive applications, headphones, earphones, wireless technology, and even touch on industry standards. And online with us from the APDA today is Steve Willenborg from Linkplay. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Roger. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good.
And Dave Lindberg from DB Enterprises and the THD podcast. Hi, Dave. Welcome.
Hey, Roger. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, Steve in Hong Kong as well. So, and our media partner, Joa Martins from Audio Express, and Adam Levinson, also a partner with the APDA from Levinson Consulting. And I thank Spencer for producing us today on this live talk. We are recording this as well. You can check it out on the YouTube channel, share it, like it, join us often. The APDA has some upcoming events. Later next month, we'll have the Audio Foundry on. And then in July, we're looking towards a Bluetooth LE audio event. And probably again in August, we'll be revisiting tariffs. And which brings us to today's topic. We welcome in today from Fujikon, Ben Yeung, who's the Executive Director and Chief Strategy Officer at Fujikon International in Hong Kong. Welcome, Ben. And
hello, Roger.
Hey, and with him is Ricky Lai, who is Head of Supply Chain and set up some of the overseas factories that are outside of China for Fujikon. So today we're going to be talking about audio manufacturing and tariff strategies, and there's a lot of questions around that. One of them for us today we'll probably look into is how Fujikon is planning and managing the current market volatility and challenges resulting from these announced U.S. tariffs. And we'll probably have some questions about what is their perspective from the audio manufacturer, who is one of the leading suppliers of headphones and personal audio products for brands around the world, and is the current situation causing to have come up with new series of strategies. So we welcome in everyone, and just a little background on Fujikon. Fujikon's been through this before. They had to navigate the previous tariffs from 2018 that affected its business in the past years, and successfully, surpassed the challenges that came from the global pandemic, and has actually expanded their operations, as we mentioned, from the mainland of China and Hong Kong into Indonesia, which is where we have Ricky, and working with service partners to deal with those logistics. So perhaps there is something from that past experience that relates to how we're looking towards facing today's challenges. So Dave, I'll let you start us off with Ben and Ricky, or we can start with Ben.
Sure.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so I think Ricky's got some notes prepared, so maybe we'll jump into a little brief background on who they are, and then we'll transition into what they're doing with their outside China strategy. So Ricky, if you could share your presentation.
Can I share my...
Yeah. So go right ahead. There we go. I think we're
That's my...
yeah, if you could go.
Yeah, I'll start with a few words.
Sure.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Ben. Yeah,
Ben. Hi, my name is Ben Yeung, and I am the Executive Director and President, as well as Chief Strategy Officer of the Fujikon Group. So Fujikon has been around for 43 years now. We have been doing this for a long time. Initially, we started off doing various kind of products, but we have been focusing on audio products probably since like I wouldn't say day one, but it was day two that we started. We owns earphones, speakers, mobile phone accessories, and now we do tons of Bluetooth headphones. We work with some of the world's largest brands, including names that people have heard of. Namely, okay, I'll name a few. So, Harman International, you've all heard of. They carry brands like JBL, AKG. We've worked with Sonova, which operates the Sanada brand right now. And we work with also Bowers & Wilkins and Auto Technica. So names that you probably have heard of, have seen them in the stores. They carry usually a pretty prestigious, high premium sortier. Now, we've been doing it for a long time, and we do it in what we call an ODM sort of business mode, which means that we work with our customers on design, development, and manufacturing, as well as, of course, delivery. That's probably there's a very common way to do our product types here in this part of China. Our customers look for cutting edge companies that has cutting edge technologies, that has some know-how in acoustics, in active noise cancellation, and that sort of technologies. So we are headquartered in Hong Kong, and we are based out of Dongguan, Guangxi, and very recently in Batam, Indonesia. Batam, Indonesia is a new, I would say, a new base for us, a new manufacturing base for us. We started to conceptualize the whole infrastructure around a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And then we actually, after working with customers, getting trial builds ready, we were able to launch our production in Batam early part of this year. So we have been shipping about half of our US bound throughput through Batam. So this is a very interesting journey. Maybe I'll let Ricky take over and tell you a little bit about what is our Batam operation, what sort of tariff structure are we looking at? Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that okay with you guys?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Ricky.
that's great.
Okay, that's my part. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm Ricky. I'm head of supply chain management of Fujikon. So I also responsible for the setup of overseas factory in Batam, Indonesia. So I may introduce our factory in Batam first. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, the factory was set up through an EMS partner in Indonesia. The concept is factory in factory. The benefit is to reduce our initial investment and the set time. Actually, from signing the contract to the first trial build, it only took 3 months for the setup. Okay,
Wow.
Fujikon is responsible for production floor management, while our partner provides the other functional service, such as customs, logistics, HR, and etc. Our partner also provides labor to us. This would help us to deal with the production capacity fluctuation in the initial stage.
And I think, Ricky, that's probably one of the larger challenges anybody might face is like the HR part of things, hiring staff and understanding some of the cultural management skills of leaving China after 43 years of production, and now you have to go to Indonesia. There might have been some interesting things that went on there that were different that you really lean on your partner to help you with.
Yeah, well, for the customs or deal with the government, it's quite difficult for a foreigner to deal with the customs for government in Indonesia. That's why we choose to set up our factory through a partner in Indonesia. Actually, we signed a toll manufacturing contract with our partner. we rented an independent production floor and pay for the services such as customs, logistics, HR, security. So actually, our partner provide the services for the functional services. What Fujikon responsible is only for the production floor management. We manage the whole production process. It is the most important role. Okay.
I have a quick question. I mean, how long ago was it that Fujikon made the decision to open a factory in Indonesia? And then was that
Well, I can tell
years?
you a little bit of story. Yeah. So in 2018, the trade war started, and of course, like everybody else, I had to poke my head out and just see what is out there, right? So I actually went to numerous countries, talking with different people, including, went to Malaysia, went to Thailand, and went to Vietnam on top of Indonesia. And I spoke with companies that had done it for a while. I had spoken with government officials who were trying to point us to a certain direction. And I didn't like what I was seeing because, say, for Vietnam, Vietnam was already pretty saturated then. I went to a real estate realtor and tried to pick up a piece of land to buy. And there weren't too many choices. And in Vietnam, I would say the local practice of hiring people is hiring people from the surrounding area. So people don't usually travel far away for employment, unlike what they do in China. In China, people go from anywhere else to the coastal region. In Vietnam, they don't. So I was I was actually pretty frustrated, after speaking with a lot of local entrepreneurs and realized that, usually Chinese and Taiwanese entrepreneurs, and they just basically told me that even they had troubles hiring people. And I was like, oh, this is not what I was looking for. So after that, I went to Malaysia, went to Thailand, and tried to do something similar. And I was not comfortable with what I was seeing. So when I first went to Indonesia, not only did I meet some local entrepreneurs, I actually met with this local EMS company, which is our current partner right now. And we were trying to come up with some solutions. Okay, so instead of just talking about how we were able to become their customer, let's see how we could partner together and tap into some of their resources while we can remain and run our manufacturing plant within their manufacturing plant. So the idea was, they didn't give us that concept right away. Okay, it was something that we came up with, and because we're trying to find a middle ground, and they need a business model that they could profit off. They can profit from us, and we have to find a business model in which our customers could trust us that we are running this facility using our own expertise while minimizing the time, because starting a factory from the ground up is actually very difficult.
That's the question. Yeah. So this is a good choice, good selection. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, again.
Yeah. So it was more like finding a right balance of what they can provide us, what we can do ourselves, and where at the same time we can minimize the initial cost without causing any hiccups. And at the same time, I have to convince my customer that they would like this approach. So what is so interesting about this whole process is that while we were brewing this idea, I was taking the conversations that I had with our EMS partner, and I took the idea and started to speak to my customers with. So they were, I was trying to dealing with the sell side and dealing with the buy side at the same time. I wasn't going to buy something without knowing that I could actually sell it, right?
Yeah.
And so it took some skills on our part. But then our customers are very knowledgeable about manufacturing. Some of them had their own factories before, in Germany, in Japan, in various places. So they understand the difficulty of starting something from the ground up. So they were willing to take our so-called leap of faith, go with this together.
Right.
So this is how we got started with this Indonesia venture.
So you
Ben,
started in sorry, go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
Yeah, so Ben, just with regards to the venture itself, one of the key elements of any factory, as you know, is the quality operating system. And it sounds like you had a nice baseline to start with, which is really a good, location to begin, and I'm sure that there was improvements and things that needed to be synergized between the two companies, but can you expand on that just a little bit? Because that's a key element, the quality.
It is. So knowing that it's more than just the infrastructure alone, right? It's about when you run a factory, it's about a system. But what about how your workflow goes in place? How does the materials get into the warehouse, goes through IQC, and then goes through production line, gets done, goes through QC, goes through final QA, leaves a factory. The whole thing is a procedure, right? And the more processes gets run within this entity, the more complex it is. So we sort of had to redefine what this facility would do. And we sort of coined it as a shop floor with a warehouse. If I have to simplify it, I would just call it a shop floor with a warehouse. That's how I would term it. By narrowing down all the operations that we do there, and that entails that we don't do other things, including we don't do product development there. We don't do the initial customs clearance and the logistics there. We rely on our partner. So basically, once the materials comes in, we'll go through our own little warehouse, IQC. We have all the procedures using the ISO procedure of our partner. So they are our content in their documents, right? So therefore, we go through their document control center.
Okay.
So therefore, it's more trustworthy. It is still a very valid document, but then the content comes from us, and our customers are okay with it.
Okay. I have a quick question too. So you started looking around in 2018. How long did it take you with this unique hybrid approach? How long did it take you to have the first day of production?
So it didn't. So back then we did not finalize our. Sorry to say, we did not finalize our concept right away.
Okay.
We worked through 2018, 2019. We still couldn't come up with the final form, and then COVID hits. And then after COVID hits, basically, as you know, we had our lockdowns, like you had your lockdowns.
Right.
I personally did not leave the Greater China area for 3 years. So that and the entire plan was placed on hold. But I can tell you one thing: right after the border opened up, the first thing that I did was to go to Singapore and Batam to work with this partner. I knew right away that this is the right approach. And then I was like, okay, let's finalize on some of those fine details and let's become more win-win. I think we have to dial in everything and have a win-win sort of mix together. And at the same time, I think things weren't so concrete upfront, right? And then through speaking and detailing those things together, we were able to come up with some pretty fine strokes on what we would do.
Okay.
I mean, for example, one thing we were curious as to how we how we can manufacture using materials that we source and fabricate in China, yet be able to get the COO, which is the country of origin, in Indonesia, right? So that was
Yes.
one thing that we were, we had our question marks. I had never done this before, never set up factory somewhere else.
Right.
So it was a learning process. It was, we're still learning, I think, but we got a lot of learning done already. And later on, we can tell you our next steps, which is, setting up the whole thing ourselves.
So right now you're inside of you're sharing a space more or less, but your capacity is okay. You're able to manufacture to what percent of what you would have done in China? Is it?
Oh, well, you brought up a very interesting question. Throughout the entire migration process, we were able to come up with different way of migration and different way of merging our product development schedule with mass production schedules.
Okay.
Now, this is a very complex thing. So, we did not come up with all these things on day one.
No.
I think we were coming with it as we were going through it. So our first product, I can tell you, the very first product, we decided that we would migrate a product that was already maturely manufacturing in China.
Yeah.
And we would only migrate this last part from China to Indonesia. So we were able to do a lot of the, I would say, pre-production and the production of part of the product in China first, and bring the outcomes to Indonesia and do the final 30%. Okay. By doing it this way, we were able to mitigate a lot of risk, because the initial 70% is the toughest part of the entire product. The last 30% is the easiest part of the product, which is the charging case and packaging.
Yeah.
Simple, right?
Right.
So we came up with this approach for our first product. Now, with this experience in mind, we actually came up with multiple other ways to migrate products. We have another process in which we migrate the product halfway through maturity, right? Which is more risky. And we have another approach in which we migrate only the US bound goods to Indonesia, and we keep everything else in China. You get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
it's complex, but you figured it out.
It's definitely complex, because every customers want to do it slightly differently. They have different launch schedule in mind, and they have different cost concerns in mind. Because you know what, manufacturing in Indonesia does not mean it is cheaper. You know why? Because first we have to ship all the materials over.
Right.
If the entire product is not made, like not assembled at all, you got to ship them in their raw material form, which takes a lot of space, and then you need to have a lot of value add in Indonesia to put them together, right?
So, yeah.
So it costs more. It costs more to make it over there. So does it make sense to make everything in Indonesia? Maybe not. So that's why we split them.
Yeah. Has anything changed though with the level of tariffs now? Does making it in Indonesia come out to be cheaper after that, or does that have an impact on it?
Currently, the reciprocal tariff for Indonesia has fallen back down to 10%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So relatively, it is cheaper, of course, because in China, even before the 145%, there was what was placed in the early part of this year, right? Remember the 10% plus 10% plus 34%, right? Remember that part? And not to mention that we were already slapped on a tariff of 7.5% back in 2018.
Okay.
So,
and I'll just point out today is May 6th, 2025.
Yes.
So that might
It might
change.
change. It may change in the next hour.
Yeah, exactly. So for
Yeah.
for reference and relevance, you mentioned earlier that you managed to qualify a part as country of origin Indonesia. What's the process to do that?
I'll let Ricky take over.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Actually, for getting the country of origin certificate, you need to have the local values at the what we call the local content. You have to maintain the local content to around 20 to 40%, depends on the importing country. For United States, you need to have the local content to be around 35% above. So when you produce a product in Indonesia, you need to maintain the local content to about 35% of local content in order to get the COO certificate for exporting the products to United States. This is what I have the slide. Yeah.
Okay, and so this is content that's built or assembled in China and then put into Indonesia and then it becomes considered a country of
Yeah,
origin.
so for each of the product, you need to have the breakdown of the product. For each of the material costs, you need to know how many materials are importing from China.
Got it.
The
Okay.
part of the material importing from China should not be more than 60% in order to get a CO.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay.
And Ricky, is that based on the bill of materials cost? It's not like a volumetric measurement. It's actually based on the dollar value at the 20 to 40%.
Actually, from my understanding, the calculation is based on the values, the material,
Okay.
the value material and the local contents.
So it is cost-based. So 60% of cost on the BOM should be.
Not the percentage is based on the selling price.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. The local content should be about 40% of the selling price.
Got it.
Yeah. Then you can get a CO certificate.
Yeah. Okay. That was useful. Thank you. Go ahead. Dave, we want to go ahead with Ricky's presentation? Or do we have another question?
Ricky, what next? Let's see what else we can talk about here.
Let's see what's next. Yeah.
I've shared some this is the location of our factory in Batam.
Okay.
Actually, it is just opposite to Singapore. It takes around an hour ferry from Singapore to Batam. It's quite convenient to us.
Okay.
And Ricky, in that area, is there quite a number of, isn't it like an industrial complex area where a lot of factories are in that local area? I mean, that's question one. And then question two is, to Ben, your point, being able to pull in labor, factory workers and such. Is that something that is you're pulling in from the various provinces within Indonesia?
For Batam, as I know, the unemployment rate is around 7 to 8%. So it's easier to find labor in this area. From my understanding, there are a lot of industrial park in Batam. So at this moment, there's no difficulty for us to find a place to build up our production factory in there.
Let me shine some lights on this topic. Actually, I was just in Batam early part of last week, and then I was just in this island called Sumatra just 2 hours ago. So I haven't been to Indonesia numerous times. I can tell you one thing: the country is huge. It has 290 million people, and there's a lot of people who would like to work in this kind of jobs. Our average, put into this perspective, the average age of our Dongguan, China workers are north of 35 years old, whereas our workers in Batam is around 25 years old. There's a lot of young people who enters the workforce, and a lot of them, for them, this is an attractive way to make a living.
Yeah.
Whereas in China, as we all know, China has been saturated for decades now. Ever since the labor law implemented back in 08, right? The cost has been on a rise, and the people have been upgrading their standard of living. So therefore, people are more educated. They want to be engineers, but they don't want to be workers, right? They don't want to be factory workers. So I would say right now, Indonesia is pretty attractive in this sense. Now, on the other hand, if you look at other things though, Batam used to have quite a bit of industrial presence. I think about 10 years ago, they sort of died down a little bit, and very recently it shot back up because of the tariffs. But even so, right now, the supply chain in Indonesia, I would say, is still not complete. Okay, so, and which gives more opportunity. Right now, we still have to bring the parts and components from China. In the future, we would like to source some parts and components locally. So this is something for us to do. But as of today, it is still not there yet.
Yeah.
Now, the saying goes like this: if a place is easy, it would be expensive. So China is easy because it has everything within 2 hours, right? If you want to buy anything, you can buy it from a supplier within 2 hours of driving, easy. 5-6 years ago. So therefore, right now, Vietnam is no longer cheap. So we have to look for the next cheapest place to build a factory.
I was going to ask, has anything changed since you last looked at Vietnam, which you just answered? Vietnam is the same.
Yeah.
Now Thailand also, and all those.
I actually, let's see. I went to Vietnam twice with various trade association expeditions in the past 2-3 years. Every time I go there, and I realized that things had gotten even tougher than before.
Oh.
A lot of the commodities, a lot of the expenditures had gone up around 30 to 40% since my last visit in 2018 and 2019.
Wow.
So yeah, so Vietnam is way too saturated. No one should go to Vietnam today. This is the last place anyone wants to be right now. Not to mention that the trade deficit is pretty high. The trade gap between U.S. and Vietnam is pretty substantial for Vietnam, such that Vietnam is a big target for a huge tariff. And obviously it already had a huge tariff during the reciprocal tariff. They got slapped on around 46%.
Okay.
So,
a question we're getting from the chat about earlier about that 60% content. How do you, and they're asking questions about, how is that price or cost determined? Is it a price do you sell it to the Indonesian factory, or how is it done in terms of how do you determine what the 60% price cost is? And is there any local labor issues that help improve that or make it harder to determine what the cost is of that local China product being sent to Indonesia? Can you explain that process one more time, maybe?
Actually, the calculation logic is what we call the local content is compared to the selling price. Okay, so in another way, the formula is that we could calculate the material cost importing from China. Okay, if we want to maintain the local content to 35%, that means the material cost importing from China would be 65% to add up to 100% of the selling price.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think that there were some questions about that in the chat, so I think that was helpful. So go ahead.
Now, not saying that we are doing it, but there are tricks that could be used to tweak this a little bit. And I'm sure you and your audience would like to hear about it, right?
Sure.
So,
Yeah,
so we can
we
talk
always
about,
like
so we
to.
can, yeah.
Give
So,
us
so
that.
the,
Oh,
so, oh, sorry. So
No.
so the value of the content could be understated,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And certain parts of the component which could be overstated. So, for example, firmware, which is a piece of software, right?
Right.
Some products do have it. Our product does have it,
Mhm.
and the firmware could be overstated in terms of price, so that you can add in a higher amount of content locally during part of the manufacturing.
Got it.
So, not saying that we do it. I'm just saying, hey, these
That's
are
one way. Yeah.
yeah, that's one way to do it. Now we got to be fair. If everything has to be done locally, I think right now we're still is very hard to do, right? Because if you want
Yeah.
to put in 40% of local content, that would essentially requires you to either do the SMT locally,
Mhm.
or you have to do your plastic parts locally, on top of all the labor content that you have to put in. Because labor content usually contributes just about 9%, 6 to 9% of your total cost of sales.
I think that answered another question in the chat. So thank you. So that's good to know.
And
And-
Ben, another question or comment is, Batam, with its proximity to Singapore, is there any inherent value in that with regards to maybe shipping or logistics? Yeah.
Big time. So Singapore, of course, is an international hub. I'm in Singapore right now. I'm at the airport right now. It is world class. It has a deep sea port, which is something that is known for. So logistically, it is unmatched. And one thing that is not mentioned, because it applies to no one else but us, is that our customer has their regional headquarters in Singapore, which helps a lot, because in the past, for the engineers and for the project managers to come to our site and work on products is a 4 or 5 hour flight plus local commute, right? For them to come to our Batam factory, it is only a 1.5 hour ferry ride all the way from the terminal to door, basically door to door. Is amazing. All right, they can get. Takes only 1.5 hours for them to get to the front door of my factory, which is something that they love. So I think this is another big plus for us that that's not frequently mentioned.
Good. Okay.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Dave. Anything else?
Yeah, maybe I thought that maybe for some clickbait at the end here, we maybe if there's no more questions in the chat.
How about Ricky? Can you show? There's a slide that we made. It's more like the roles and responsibility between the two parties. Okay? So yeah, maybe Ricky, can you explain this a little bit?
Yeah. For this table, actually it shows the main roles and responsibilities owned by Fujikon and our partner OSI. Actually, you can see that our partner only provide the services like security, customs, labors, and the site building services. But for the other major roles, like we have our own system, ERP system, MES system. Fujikon also responsible for the process control, production planning, quality control, and the inventory management. The most important thing is that the technical know-how to produce headphones that will be responsible by Fujikon.
Quick
Okay.
question.
Another just a quick question. It kind of goes above and beyond, what we're talking about here. But we've had these discussions in the past, and Ben or Ricky, have you guys, as a company or organization, obviously there's going to be, these types of issues around the globe, the tariffs and such. And one of the things that has been talked about in the past is localized manufacturing, i.e., manufacturing in Mexico, for instance, close to the U.S., manufacturing in Hungary, or in Europe. From an organizational perspective, for Fujikon, your products are obviously extremely specific for, your markets. Is there any thought about doing some of the, longer term planning as an organization right now to maybe localize some of the manufacture of the end products?
So I think you talk about moving to the US. Is that what you're asking for?
The US, consumer electronics being manufactured in the US, I think might be a bit of a stretch, but in the past it was built in Mexico, as everyone
Okay.
knows. And then in Europe, Hungary's become a big source of localized, if you will, production. So it all boils down to, the cost to the end consumer and the value that people want. And it's just, as a company that produces products, it's a very difficult and complex question, on how you want to structure from a global perspective.
So the way that we are structuring our manufacturing base right now is that we want to become very mobile and agile. There's so much going on with tariffs and various geopolitical pressures, right? Being agile and being mobile is very important to us. Now, let me share with you on my view on how to move things from one place to another. Now, it is hard, but it's not impossible to move to any place in the world that has good amount of people, good amount of logistical infrastructure. Because if final assembly is all you do at that location, it is not that tough. I can do this in Hungary. I can do this in Mexico. I can do it in the US. Because all final assembly does is bunch of gluing and bunch of, putting screws onto the product, right? That is it's not that tough. The toughest part is the fabrication of parts. Fabrication of parts means fabrication. Fabrication of parts such as plastics, such as a part like a speaker driver, such as doing the cable harness, such as operating a printing press. All these things are a lot more difficult. Putting the final few screws and glue together is actually pretty simple. We hear a lot about how these news anchors go online and say, hey, if you do an iPhone in the US, it is going to cost the consumer $9,000 US. That's misleading. That's assuming that every single part has to be made in the US. But if you just do the final assembly in the US, I don't think it's going to cost that much.
And so what would you consider raw materials and how accessible they are locally to Hungary, Mexico, Indonesia, anything that's not China?
Yeah. So it differs from place to place. When I talk about raw materials, I'm not just talking about the raw chemical, right? I'm talking about a plastic part, a magnesium casted aluminum alloy. Now that is pretty difficult. These kind of skills are pretty deeply embedded in the Pearl Delta region in China, but you don't find them in many other places, not in that sort of scale. So it's very hard to do the whole thing entirely in the US or in Hungary or in Mexico. But if you just do the final assembly in any of those places, I don't think there's any difficulty at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did it in Indonesia, although we're doing it with a partner that has been doing electronics for a while. That helps, but I could be going to Africa and teach a bunch of people to glue things and screw things together. It's entirely possible.
Well, how feasible? Well, I guess it's hard to say how feasible it is to start. I mean, it takes a lot of infrastructure to make raw materials locally. So
it is.
So for Fujikon, you have currently moved how much over to Indonesia? I mean, not raw materials, but your manufacturing. Your manufacturing, how much of it is
just final assembly?
Yeah. Is there a percentage of your total that you're doing over there?
As I said earlier, right? So it's 30% of the entire product is final assembled in China. And I'm not even talking about the fabrication of parts. Yeah. I'm talking about within final assembly, 30%, 40% are done in Indonesia.
Do you think that's, you said you want to be more flexible and capable. So does that mean you're planning more manufacturing outside of China, or?
That's one thing that we could be looking at, but I think right now, we do have plans to expand our current Indonesia footprint by 3 times. We're going to do that. And I think it is more like a procedure, more like a process. Once we get this process down, moving to another location somewhere else, around, in the far side of the world, it is not impossible. I just got to find another partner that can help us with, some of these things. And if we have to do it on our own, yeah, it's possible. It's not impossible, But if I have to rewind our tape by 2 years, I had never done it before 2 years ago, right? So back then I'd be like, wow, this sounds like a pretty daunting job. Yeah. But today I'm like, okay, well, I know what it takes now. If I'd have to do it again, I know what's the minimal that I can, how I can spawn this somewhere else in a small footprint way.
Yeah, you have a nice template that you can follow.
I have a template now.
Yeah, correct. Which is good.
That experience is good. And I imagine, I asked earlier how quickly it took you, but there was a lot of circumstances in between that. Yeah. But today, I imagine there are many Chinese factories saying or being asked, make it somewhere else. So, and they could do it quickly if they had the experience that you have. Perhaps they do. Is there a lot of, I guess, what's the, if you can say, what's the government's attitude towards this happening? Are they okay as long as there's a percentage?
I don't think I don't think the government has any incentives or push in this direction, but all entrepreneurs would be worrisome, right? They want to do something about it.
Exactly.
But I think there's a lot of, not only on the manufacturing side, even the customer side has a lot of inertia. Okay, because moving supply chains is pretty daunting, right? Yes, so on the manufacturing side, I can share with you my viewpoint. Companies our size, or someone who is larger than ours, they are more likely to have the monetary capital. They're more likely to have the human capital, and they're more. I think they would be more. I would say, more daring to go for such a thing, because if they don't have money, if they don't have English speaking staff that can help them move overseas, and if they already have razor thin margins, they probably don't want to make a move. But if they don't make a move, they're gonna die, right?
Right. Yeah, so, I'm sure they're being asked today, what's your plan?
Yeah, and I've seen, and I personally know a lot of companies that are falling into that category of lacking those 3 things, all 3, lacking all 3. Even lacking 2 is difficult. If you lack all 3, you couldn't make a move. There are companies out there that they probably have someone in operations that can speak English. That's not common. I gotta say, you probably have someone who can speak English on the sales side, but they don't speak English in the operation side. Luckily, we do have, right? So they will have that, right? But then they don't have the capital. They don't want to, a lot of times these companies have been around for decades already. And they have this war chest that they saved up after all these years. Do they want to burn this last piece of their war chest on this venture?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Something they gotta ask. And if they're and if some of them already has razor thin margins, then they'd be like, okay, they can barely cut it in China. How could they fare it somewhere else? Then they would ask themselves this very difficult question. So yeah, this is I think I'm viewing this whole thing very positively. This whole tariff thing is working for us instead of against us.
Okay.
All right. And because we do have those three things. We have those three things.
Well,
that
you happen to be, you were strong to start, and that's helpful. And then you were inventive when the first, you got proactive about it back in 2018, which is helpful.
So what I see out of this whole situation is that there will be fewer manufacturers after this whole thing.
Yeah.
Collectively, not just talking about China. You talk about collectively everywhere, because we have to remind ourselves, a lot of these factories in Cambodia, in Vietnam, in Indonesia, they are built by Chinese factories owners.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they die, they don't expand. Right. There will be fewer brands. There are a lot of brands under threats right now. They did not make a move prior to this. They have very little business coming in, and I would think that they were just, the markets were flooded with too many products, not only in our industry but everywhere else. So there were just too many products, too many factories, too many brands. I think this is gonna eliminate some of the competition out there, which is a good thing.
Okay. We have one last question from the chat.
Yeah.
And that is, have you seen any increase in export control on things like neodymium materials or assemblies?
Yeah, we recently heard about neodymium. Yeah, we did. So I don't know the detail. I'm not sure if Ricky knows about detail. But then the neodymium that we use are tiny, right?
Right.
So they are already pre-cut to have a certain function. So therefore, it's not affecting us as of today.
Okay.
Because they're just too tiny.
Well, we'll stay tuned. Maybe in a couple of months,
who knows?
will change. We'll talk about. Our plans are to talk about it again coming up in August, because we know that that's probably a good check-in as well. Anything else, Dave, we may have missed here?
No, I think that's good. That was a great chat, actually. I was thoroughly impressed with Ben and Ricky there on the detail, and just the factory. It makes sense for growth and scaling, and also getting the buy-in from your key customers, and securing the trust from them that you're still going to deliver and not going to run into a whole chaos of problems as you move production. I mean, that's got to be scary for both factory and brand massively to try something new. So I think it's a good summary. But yeah, I guess I know that Ben's gonna be with some of his teammates at Computex in Taipei on May 20th through 23rd. I think the show happens. So you can if anybody's following me on LinkedIn, I'll tell you where to find Fujikon if you want. So just reach out. And I think there's IFA coming up in Berlin at the end of summer. So and then of course the electronics show in Vegas next year.
Yeah, good. And thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Ben. And thanks, everybody. The other ones, I guess, you're probably looking at too, Ben, is you mentioned possibly Infocom, possibly CDA, if those things work out for you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. For us, the APDA, and once again, thanks for everybody who participated, and thanks to the chat. Very lively today. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, a great discussion.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to love this, and it's going to be referred to a couple times. So I think that's great. For us, we have later next month, we're going to be talking to the Audio Foundry, and then again, talk about Bluetooth LE audio in July. And like I said, we're probably going to swing back around in August to talk about this again, to see where we are. And our is speaking of CES, APDA will have a presence there. We're going to have a space, and Steve knows more about it than I do particularly, but we're going to have some space for everyone to converge on the APDA as a central place to talk and discuss and exchange. Anything else I should mention about that, Steve, or we can bring it up
Not
here?
right now. Yeah, we're working on that, and we'll have some announcements here coming up. So
All right,
it's
thank you.
exciting, and we look forward to collaborating with the industry.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks again, everyone. And hopefully have a good night there in Hong Kong and in Singapore, and everyone around the world. We appreciate you attending today, and thanks for the everything that you've contributed. And like I say again, let's make sure we like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll keep this up on the channel. It'll be there for you to come back and look at again anytime you want to. Once again, thank you. This is the APDA, and I'm Roger Shively. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.